Hello and welcome to another lovely time on Executive Discourse, coming to you on the network service of the NTA. My name is Ololade Adeniji. This week's episode of the program, my guest is a two-time governor. He's also a two-time senator, but of course you know that once a senator, always a senator. Now, in his time when he was the governor of a northwestern state in Nigeria, there were a few issues that that people made topical. Even though he had his reasons, I'm sure he will shed light on all those reasons and many more. Please join us as we welcome to Executive Discuss the former governor of Zamfara State and, of course, a senator, talking about Senator Ahmed Sani Yarima. Hello, distinguished senator. How are you?
Fine, thank you very much. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Now, I would want to start my conversation with you from your reign as a governor and before you became the governor. You were in the civil service of Zamfara State before you retired to join politics. What was it that made you decide to go into politics and not remain in the civil service?
Well, in the first place, I joined politics by coincidence. In 1997, I was a permanent secretary. And during Sani Abacha's regime, late General Sani Abacha, I was just sitting in the office, and the governor then, Colonel Jibril Bala Yakubu, sent for me. And when I reached his office, he asked me, who do I know in the presidency? I said, I don't know anybody. He said, but there is a message he received that I'm wanted at the presidency. I should report to the political advisor. He gave me the letter, and the address was there, in his guest house, at 8:30 p.m. the next day. He gave me the go-ahead, the approval. I left Zamfara. I arrived at Abuja and went direct to the venue of the meeting. At that time, I met the political advisor, Alhaji Sule Hamma, General Yarima Hussaini, or the then Minister of FCT, and Major Hamza Al-Mustafa, the three of them. Then the political advisor told me that I've been identified by the security to go and run for governorship in Zamfara State under DPN as a political party. At that time,
you had been identified by the security?
By the security, that I'm a popular person, I can win election.
Okay.
And that the government then of Sani Abacha wanted to identify the tax security. So when they say I'm going to run for governorship under DPN, I told them that in Zamfara NCP is more popular. Then they told me, no, this is not my problem. As far as government is concerned, DPN is earmarked for Zamfara.
Okay.
I said, okay. So I left. They said tomorrow morning I should go to the headquarters of DPN and collect the governorship form, nomination form. When I reached there, they gave me form with a receipt that I paid.
It had been paid
250,000 naira has been paid for me. I collected, and I was to go to Zamfara and get all the executive of DPN from ward level to local government level and state level to sign nomination for me. I did all that, and when I finished, I was supposed to come and submit it to the DPN headquarters. Saleh Hassan then was the national chairman. I came and submitted, and at 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was eating, I just heard breaking news that Sani Abacha was dead.
Oh my.
I said, oh my God, that is all over. That was the beginning. So when I went back to Zamfara, of course, people have already learned that Yarima is going to be the next governor and is going to contest under DPN. So when he died, and the governor called me that there was big petition against him that time, and that if I have to be in politics, I have to resign immediately. Otherwise, I should take myself off the political scene. But I told him, now that I have started and people are already mobilized, whether I said I'm running or not, they will still be, because they were calling for me to come out and contest again under APP.
Okay.
So I told him I opted to resign.
To resign.
So he said, go and write your resignation letter. In fact, I went and wrote my resignation letter. The permanent secretary, office of the governor then, advised me not to. When he saw me with my file, Yarima, what are you going to do? I said, I'm resigning to
join politics.
He said, you're going to contest against these big wigs. And because at that time, all the heavyweights in Zamfara, you remember General Ali Muhammad, the NSA, was the one coordinating the PDP. All the former governors, Malam Abdul Karim, Dr. Garba Nadama of former Sokoto State in Zamfara, all the former ministers, all the former were in PDP. He said, how can you dare contest against these big wigs in PDP? I told him that it's God that gives power. He challenged me and said, if you resign and go into politics and you win election, I will resign from my appointment. And suddenly I went in. The governor immediately gave me approval. I came out with the file. I showed him the PAMSEC that, look, I have resigned. It has been approved. He said, then I give you this challenge. I know you are wasting your time against these big wigs. In short, I went into politics. I won the election. And before I went to the election, this permanent secretary was four other PAMSECs, because we were all permanent secretaries at that time, connived and joined the PDP to stop me. And the government, got to know that there are a lot of people who have identified themselves with the other party. And the biggest support the governor gave me was to call them on the day of election for a meeting, emergency meeting, call all the permanent secretaries. At that time, there were no commissioners. He called them for emergency meeting in the morning and did not release them until after
the elections.
Because they have plans, so many plans that the security, discovered. And in the short, I won the election, and I was declared as the governor-elect of Zamfara State. So that's how I joined politics.
Was it as part of being a welfare government that you introduced the controversial Sharia law in Zamfara?
Well, you see,
because you were the first governor to do that.
You see, the genesis of that law was very historical.
Tell me about it.
When I left CBN, to Sokoto State to learn more about my religion. When I was in CBN, I went for Umrah in 93. I had first Hajj in 1992, but I went for Umrah in 1993, my first Umrah. That's lesser Hajj. Yes. And in that Umrah, all Muslims knows that every night people pray late from 1 o'clock till around 3 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock. And the sheikhs, the imams that lead the prayer, Sheikh Sudais, normally make dua supplications at the end of the prayer. And on the 27th day of Ramadan in 1993, he was making supplications, and many people were crying in front of me, behind me, left, right. And I found that I was also crying. Unfortunately, when I finished, I discovered that I was crying because I didn't know what the sheikh was saying.
You didn't know what he was saying?
Yeah, because I don't know Arabic.
Okay.
And when I take my Quran as a Muslim, I could not understand, I could not read it.
Read the Arabic.
I could not read Quran too much.
Okay.
So I decided to leave CB and go back to Sokoto, because in CB and Foreign Operations Department, I was going to the office 7:30 and we close 9, 10, 11, sometimes up to 1 o'clock, because we are the office that provide Estacots and all foreign currencies to all the agencies and ministries of government, ministries and departments. So there was no time for me to
You
go
didn't
back
have
to school
time for yourself,
for
basically.
myself. So I decided to go back to Sokoto, where I go to the office at 8 o'clock and close 3 o'clock, just to learn more about my religion, my Quran and so on. And I now returned to Sokoto. I was appointed Director of Budget, and I was learning. I finished the Quran that I wanted to do. And in the process, when we were learning, I was learning in my boss quarters. Okay. But later, they said I should build a small mosque in front of my house so that we can learn and pray inside that mosque. So as we finished the mosque, the sheikh that was teaching me, Abubakar Silami, said, well, it's better we do walima. We just do a small celebration.
Like a graduation.
Graduation. That time I had finished the Quran and we built a mosque. So the cassette is there. Okay. It's still historical.
You went back to 1994, school, kind of.
Yes. So 1994, when that celebration was going on, they called me to come and say something as a graduate and somebody who also finished the mosque. I just stood off and said, after greeting the people, I said that we were learning in the boss quarter, but Sheikh Abubakar Silami now said we should build this mosque so that we should learn and pray in it. That while constructing the mosque, something came to my mind, that we are not going to learn in the mosque and pray alone, that we are going to use that place as an avenue to discuss how we are going to implement Sharia in Sokoto, how Sharia will be implemented in Sokoto State and Nigeria at large. I didn't know what brought the issue of Sharia, but I knew at that time I listened to tafsir, Quranic something
teachings,
in my car,
yes.
And every time Sheikh Gumi, Dahir Bochi, all these sheikhs, when they are talking, they always talk about Sharia. And I thought Sharia is simple. It is something that you have to abide with as a Muslim. That we have Muslim governors, military and civilians. We have presidents. That why don't they do this Sharia? I thought it was very simple. That was 1994. 2 years later, Zamfara was created. And I gave you the background of my journey into politics.
Yes.
So while in campaign, in 1998, an organization, Izala Group of Jos, invited all the gubernatorial candidates on their launching of a mosque and preaching. Okay. I was the only one that attended. The PDP candidate didn't go. So when I went to speak, I told them that I'm running for this office not only to benefit myself, but to make sure that I encourage people and make sure that they have freedom of religion, they worship their religions the way they want. The sheikh, one sheikh, Sayyid Al-Hassan Jingir, now came and said, the only way I can help the Muslim is to introduce Sharia when I become governor. I came back to the podium and said, I promise God and these people that if I'm elected the governor of Zamfara, I will introduce Sharia. That was 1998. It's a campaign promise. People didn't know. I was elected afterwards on January 9th. 2 weeks after the inauguration, we took over in May 29th. In June, they organized another preaching session. They invited me again as governor. Then this sheikh reminded me of my promise.
Of your promise.
And I came up again after my speech. I came back and said, as soon as I returned to Gusau, the state capital, I was going to inaugurate a committee to advise me on how best to do the Sharia. I came back I invited a very old Attorney General of Northern Nigeria then. Okay. He was alive, he was from Zamfara State. And a lot of lawyers and some ulamas, and inaugurated a committee headed by that Attorney General, Alhaji Usman Dangogo Pungudu, of blessed memory. And I said they should advise me on how to do Sharia. Immediately after the inauguration of the committee, 2 days later, the American ambassador bounced in my status out notice.
Oh my.
He said he was here to see me. I said, oh, American ambassador? They said yes. With a retinue of staff. Mm-hmm. They came to my office. Then he now said that he's here to see me because I announced that I was going to do Sharia. What type of Sharia was I going to do? Is it the Afghanistan type? Or the Saudi Arabian type? Sudan type? Or Pakistan type? I said there was only one Sharia as far as I'm concerned. And that I'm elected as a governor. I swore by the Constitution to adhere and protect the Constitution. So I'm going to do it according to my Constitution. He said, oh, so long as you are going to follow the constitutional procedure, America has no problem with you. The next day, a British ambassador came.
Uh-oh.
The same day, a German ambassador arrived. The next day, French ambassador. In short, that week, all European ambassadors, one after another, came asking different questions. What was I going to do? And suddenly, after just a week of the inauguration of the committee, a group of lecturers from Center for Islamic Legal Studies, Abuja, now came to me and said that they learned that I have inaugurated a committee to do Sharia. And immediately they gathered themselves, about 7 or 9 of them, to look at the Constitution. And they found that I can implement Sharia 100% except one issue.
Okay.
That is apostasy. That somebody who changes religion, I cannot put it as part of my law because Section 38 of the Constitution guaranteed freedom of religion for every Nigerian, either alone or in community with others, in private or in public, to practice, worship, and observe his religion, and even change his religion if he wants.
If he wishes.
So therefore, I cannot put it as part of the Sharia law, because under Sharia law, strict Sharia law, once you convert from Muslim to another religion, it attracts death penalty.
Yes, you're
so
an
I say no. As far as I'm concerned, I can only do what the Constitution allows me to do. So if it is the only one that I can be, I will exclude,
that will
no
be
problem.
Exempted.
So they said they promised they were going to provide the bill that I needed, and they are going to produce the Sharia Penal Code, and they are going to produce a document also, the third one, Sharia Procedure Law. The bill is to establish the Sharia. The Penal Code is to determine offenses and punishment. And the procedure document will show the judge the procedure he will follow and the processes to establish an offense. I say, okay. So as they are working, my committee was working.
Was also working.
All the federal government security agencies, the American security agencies, the Western world, everybody was following the committee. When I had these documents in my hand, I now said, okay, my problem will be the State Assembly. How am I sure
that they will accede to that?
They will pass it into law. So I quickly gathered a national preaching session, invited all religious groups, all religious sects, including the Yorubas, the Southwest Ulamas, NAFSAT, every religious organization of Nigeria. I invited them for a preaching on enlightenment on Sharia law. What is Sharia? Okay. But the objective is not only to educate Muslims and non-Muslims about what I was going to do, but also to invite the State Assembly to make commitment at that gathering that they are going to pass it into law.
Into law.
The preaching was in the night on Saturday, and the closing ceremony was going to be on Sunday morning. And you see, when the other committee submitted the report, the state government committee, the report was that final conclusion, I cannot implement Sharia. I say, wow, when I already had my Sharia documents and the bill in my hand, I smiled.
Why?
I smiled. They said it was unconstitutional because they were influenced by the security agencies of government, the federal government, the Western world, and others. So I received the report and set up another committee that I call White Paper Committee. You know, in government, once you receive a report, you need to set up another committee to give you to give you white paper on the recommendations, do's and don'ts recommended by the committee. I gave this committee 2 weeks to finish. While as soon as I inaugurated the committee, I now invited people that weekend for this session.
For the national prayer.
Yes. So on Sunday morning, the State Assembly Speaker was called with his members, and he promised that they were going to pass the bill as soon as I brought it. In fact, they promised that the law allows for first reading, second reading, and third reading, and they will pass it the same day. I quickly ran to the podium without being invited because I got what I wanted.
To seize the opportunity.
I now said, oh my people, you have now had the promise made by the State Assembly. So tomorrow morning, I was going to present my Sharia law bill, while I have given the White Paper Committee 2 weeks. So I said I invited people to come and witness signing of Sharia law on that Monday at 2 o'clock. 9 o'clock, I went to the house, gave my address, and presented the Sharia bill and document. That was when the federal government and every other person started getting copies of what I have done. And at 11 o'clock, 11:30, the House sent a delegation of 5 members, led by the majority leader, to me, that the Chief Judge of Zamfara State said the Chief Justice of Nigeria called him and advised him and tell him to go and advise the House never to pass that bill. That the federal government has threatened that if they pass that bill into law, a state of emergency will be declared because we are going to do unconstitutional action, and they will not allow it. I shouted at them. I said, you either go and pass it as you promised yesterday, or I will address World Press Conference and say that I wanted to do Sharia, and the State Assembly of Zamfara has refused to do
despite
their promise yesterday. They say, sir, let's go back and report back and come back to you. They came back around 12 something and said, please, I should change the signing ceremony from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, that they are ready to pass it. I said, okay. I made the announcement, shifting the signing.
From 2 to 4.
They went to the House. They did first reading, second reading, third reading, and they passed it. And at 4 o'clock, I signed the Sharia.
Oh, my.
That's when my problem started. We did this on Monday. On Tuesday, I received a letter for emergency meeting of National Council of States.
Okay.
On Wednesday. I came to Abuja. For the first time, there was never a meeting when the security agencies were all invited.
Were present.
In the National Council of States. All the former heads of state and presidents.
Everybody.
All the governors, 36 of us, service chiefs, Chief of Army Staff, Chief of Defense Staff, Minister, everybody was there. Minister of Defense. Then Mr. President sat down, and now in annoyance and angry, General Obasanjo, he now said that he cannot be president of Nigeria when a governor under his watch will do something unconstitutional by implementing Sharia. I say, Mr. President, you cannot say it's unconstitutional. He turned to his left and asked the Attorney General of the Federation, Chibola Ige. He said, Attorney General, is the governor not doing unconstitutional action? He says, sir, it's unconstitutional. I say, no, Attorney General, you don't have power. At that time, I was so educated by those
the committee.
From Zaria, every section of the Constitution that gave me the power, the right. I now quoted the section of the Constitution that says, if there is any conflict between the law passed by the state government and that of the federal government, it is only Supreme Court of Nigeria
that can
that will
interpret.
determine which law is right. So one governor from the north stood up in annoyance and said, Mr. President, this is Nigeria. We cannot, because of one individual, allow Nigeria to break. This action being done by a governor of Zamfara is capable of destroying this country. Then I stood up, I said, my life is neither in your hand nor in my hand, and just sat down, because I realized what you were saying, that because of one individual, they cannot allow Nigeria to gather here and this thing. So then one governor in the south, from the south, raised his hand and said, Mr. President, this Sharia issue has nothing to do with us in the south. It affects only the north. You can see the who's and cries will only come from the north. That I would suggest that you allow the vice president, who is their brother, to invite the 19 northern governors and resolve their crisis.
And resolve the issue.
So the meeting now resolved that the vice president should invite the 19 of us to resolve the issue. In the morning, we came to Abuja, and the vice president was confronted by the journalists. What was the resolution? He said, we have not agreed on anything yet, but we are going back to penal court of northern Nigeria. We suspend the Sharia, and before a decision is taken. Then Aliru was interviewed later. He didn't know, he was not around when the vice president was interviewed.
Made his own
They confronted him. They said, they learned that a decision has been taken to suspend the Sharia law. He said, no. It didn't happen. Yarima insisted that he passed his law and that he cannot change this thing. Then Obasanjo now got angry when he got the knowledge, that information that we have not resolved the matter, and invited us in his house in the night the following week for another meeting, 19 northern governors. You know, that time the ulamas were preaching, they were mobilizing people, asking the governors to follow suit. They didn't, but that night meeting made Kure to say tomorrow he's going to declare Sharia. I was sitting in Abuja in my residence in the lodge at Sokoro. I just saw Kure. It was out speech, written speech, was out law, passed. He just sat down and said today he, Engineer Abdulkadir Kure, by the grace of God, the executive governor of the Niger State, has hereby declared Sharia law in Niger State. That he has given all Brussels, prostitute houses, 2 weeks to leave his state. And he has he asked all the beer parlors to close, to shut down in 2 weeks. And gambling houses are also given 2 weeks to leave the state. Then he said he's going to prepare his bill and send to the State Assembly within these 2 weeks to get it passed. It was only then he contacted me, got the documents that I passed, and he presented to Assembly and passed it into law within 2 weeks. The next day, Adwa declared Sharia in Katsina State because of that meeting.
Yes.
And then the next day, Bafara declared in Sokoto State, and that's how state governors started declaring in the northern Nigeria. 11 states declared. The 12th state was Kano. He didn't declare because he promised President Obasanjo he would never declare Sharia. But unfortunately for him, people in Kano were mobilized. They follow him anywhere he go for Jumu'at prayer. They stop him. They started even throwing stones. Then he now moved to army barracks to be observing his Jumu'at prayer. Even there, people started following him. Then around January, February, the election was, I think, in April or March. He called me in the night and said, Yarima, this problem you created for us. Chief Obasanjo now called me this night and said he received security report that if I don't declare Sharia in Kano, I was going to lose election. That he advised me to quickly declare Sharia. The president that said he would not allow Sharia is now advising the governor of Kano State, he's still alive, the two of them are alive, to declare Sharia in Kano. He said, please come to Kano next week, support me to declare Sharia. I went, we gathered people, a very large crowd that are ready to observe the Sharia law in Kano. He declared Sharia and he still lost election. because he didn't do it.
He didn't do it on time.
Intentionally.
Yes.
He didn't
it
do
was
it with good
basically
intention.
just for the purpose of election.
Election, and he lost the election.
Let me ask you this question, distinguished senator, because when you were establishing the Sharia law,
Yes.
it was basically because you had gotten more knowledge of the Quran and of your faith.
Yes.
But did you not think, or did you not envisage that it was going to cause the kind of rancor it did? Especially bearing in mind that some people who are not of the Islamic faith would probably see it, that you had a hidden agenda to Islamize, Zamfara, and it will probably further spread into Nigeria.
Well, you see, like you said, I was innocently thinking that it's a program that concerned my state alone. So when, in fact, let me give you a small history again. When I started campaigning, before I started the campaign, before I was invited to Abuja to join DPN, as soon as Zamfara was created, I think 2 weeks after I resumed office as DG, Lands and Housing, some ladies in their white attire called Ladies of Fatima Church came to my office and said they have a file that, they have their church that was built during the colonial days. The certificate of occupancy expired 25 years ago, since northern Nigeria. They have been pursuing various governments in Sokoto, Northwest, up to Sokoto State, to get the certificate renewed. Every successive governor who were Muslim refused to sign the certificate. They will be recommended, because governors signed certificate of occupancy, that they want me to please help them. I say, Madam, you are now lucky you have a new state. As far as I'm concerned, at that time I was so vast in knowledge of Islam, like you said. I know the Quran, I can understand, interpret the Quran, and I didn't see anywhere where the religion said other people should not observe their faith. And there is no compulsion of religion. In the Quran, it's clearly stated that we should do our own religion and others observe their own religion, allow others to observe their religion. So I explained to them that you are lucky now we have a state. I assure you, you are going to have your certificate of occupancy renewed. That was refused 25 years ago. They thanked me. I started the process. We had a meeting. It was recommended. We sent to the governor's office. The same thing that happened to them in 25 years ago.
They were denied.
The governor kept the file. As usual, that's what they used to do. They will keep the file in their office and not sign. Until they leave the office. Somebody will come. If a new governor comes, the file will be returned to the land department. A new fresh process
all over again.
So the governor kept the file. Every time they come to me, I will say the governor has not returned the file. They pressurize me to go and talk to the governor. The governor is still alive. He's in Nasarawa State. He now told me never to come to him again for that file. I came
because
back.
It was another faith.
No, yes, he's a Muslim. So because their belief is that they should not allow places of worship. So I now said, Madam, this is my problem. Now I don't know what to do. They say, we told you, Yarima, this is the faith we have been having. So the day I now declared I was going to contest, they were the first group of people to come to me and said, Yarima, you supported us, you helped us. But the governor has refused to sign the certificate as usual. We typed the certificate, it was ready. So as they said, will you promise us that you are going to sign the certificate if you become governor?
When you get into office?
I told them if I cannot recommend, I would not have signed. But if I can recommend your certificate, it means I will sign it. I signed the recommendation. What will stop me from signing? They now said they will want me to visit their church.
Okay.
And address the congregation as a gubernatorial candidate of APP. I went there and they introduced me and they said I should tell the congregation, women,
make a promise.
What I have told them. The ladies of Fatima Church is still alive in Gusau.
Ladies of Fatima.
So I went there. I promised them that as far as I'm concerned, I'm a Muslim, but somebody who believes that God will never make mistake. By creating me as Muslim, creating somebody as Jew, somebody as Hindu. So I said, therefore, that God that cannot make mistake will not let people alive if he doesn't want them to be alive. So I promised them I was going to not only sign their certificate as governor, I'll create an environment where every person in Zamfara would be free to worship his religion. They said hallelujah and they prayed for me. And the lady, the leader of that group, now said they are going to go all out in Zamfara.
And mobilize for you.
And mobilize for me. In fact, the next day, she met me again. They met me and said they want me to go to each church they have organized. That I will go to church by church to address them. And they were taking me to every church in Gusau state capital. The Catholic churches, the Pentecostal, Anglican, all the churches, Anglican churches. In the end, they organized a meeting by CAN.
Okay.
Let me give them all these assurances that I gave to individual churches. And I gave them. And they now, the CAN chairman then stood up and said, the CAN as a body has endorsed me as their candidate. As soon as I was sworn in, the ladies for Fatima now wrote a letter saying they want to come and congratulate me.
Congratulate you.
And so I quickly remembered the promise I made. All the files that were left by the governor were returned to their ministries. So I asked the DG Lands to quickly, the Permanent Secretary Lands and Housing, to return the file of Ladies of Fatima Church. They came after the introduction, after the opening, Muslim prayer, Christian prayer. I said, Madam, before you say anything, what brought you? PAMSEC, please, can you bring that file? Give them to sign a acknowledgement copy, give them the original certificate.
Oh, my.
When they signed, the lady just started crying. They could not hold themselves. All of them.
After 25 years?
Were shedding tears. They knelt down, started saying hallelujah, hallelujah. And they said they came here to congratulate me, but above all now, they have changed their mission, is to say, thank you, God, thank you, God, thank you, God, and thank you, Yarima. And after that, 2 weeks later, I now inaugurated a committee for Sharia. They came back to me and said, Yarima, you have given us very important thing in our right hand,
and you want
you are taking everything we have, everything, not even the thing you gave us, from the left hand. I say, I don't understand, madam. They say, you are sent out of Zamfara. With Sharia, can we stay in Zamfara? I say, madam, please, you will have more freedom to worship your religion in this state. The promise I made to you as governor, when I was campaigning, as governor, I will make sure I will fulfill your promise. Go and tell all the Christian associations, all the Christian churches, that they will no longer be denied right of occupancy of their land. They will no longer be rejected application for land. Once they have land, they will be given permission to build their churches. That all the 3 promises I made are going to be fulfilled. Because I promised them that if they acquire land, they say they were not given permission to build the church. Even when they build, without the permission, it gets demolished. I said they will have permission and nobody will demolish their land. 2, if their certificate expired, it will be renewed. And that they will have, nobody will cause problem for them. They will have absolute freedom to worship their religion as human beings created by God. So she said this assurance that I gave her, she wants CAN as a body that they organized for me during the campaign.
Yes.
Let them come and hear the same assurance.
The same thing.
I invited them. They came. It was covered. The video is there in Zamfara. So because I thought that was going to be my problem. In fact, that was when I started seeing the beginning of my problem.
Because you came
that time,
with
because that time Ambassador of
innocently.
America didn't come. So it was a day after the meeting that the American ambassador came. Because the day I inaugurated the committee was the day the ladies came. And the next day, CAN meeting was organized with me. And at that meeting, I told them that, look, before my Sharia, the Penal Code of Northern Nigeria has prohibited 3 things. Alcoholism, prostitution, and gambling in the whole of northern states. It is there in the Northern Nigerian Penal Code. Even during the colonial masters, the laws were implemented. I said, these are the only things that will affect you. But if you people think I should exempt Christian from prostitution, law banning prostitution, they say, no, our religion does not accept prostitution.
It prohibits.
I say gambling, they say, yes, Christianity also does not accept gambling. Then somebody raised his hand and said, but this alcohol, that his own church said they can take wine. Then argument started. Some people say no, some people say yes.
Yes.
When I saw from my calculation, majority are saying they don't want, I should ban alcohol. I said, okay, I want to put this last issue to vote. Anybody who wants me to ban alcoholism in Zamfara should raise his hand. Majority raise their hands. Then I say anybody who wants me to exempt the Christians from the law banning alcoholism in Zamfara should raise his hand. Not even the person who brought the argument raised his hand. Nobody. I say, okay, then everybody now accepted that this is this thing. We concluded the meeting peacefully. The next day, American ambassador came. When he came, I gave him the issue of that meeting, that I've given Christian assurance of their faith.
Yes.
And gave him all the assurance that I was going to follow Constitution. And suddenly, all these meetings took place in Abuja.
Yes. And
that was when I now realized that I
was
in trouble.
It wasn't so innocent after all.
And then there was crisis in Kaduna suddenly.
Yes.
And I said, what concerns Kaduna was what I'm doing in Zamfara.
With what you're doing in Zamfara.
So for 8 years, I tried to control the people.
Yes.
Because as I said, I did everything to adhere to the Constitution. In fact, the federal government did not challenge any of my law. We had laws establishing the Hizbah, what they call state police that time. It was not a police. The Constitution allowed every human, every organization, people, Nigerian, to gather themselves and to protect other Nigerians. It's allowed. Like they are doing this, Ametokan and others. They are all provided for in the Constitution. What they are not allowed to do is to carry arms.
So basically, the establishment of the Sharia law, at least under your administration, there was peace for everybody, and people were allowed to practice their faith, either Muslims or non-Muslims.
Yes.
Glad to know you're still with us. The program is Executive Discourse, coming to you on the network service of the NTA. And my guest, of course, is the former governor of Zamfara State, Senator Ahmed Yarima. Still talking about Zamfara. Like it or not, today Zamfara seems to have gained notoriety as the bedrock of banditry in Nigeria. How did Zamfara get to this point? What happened?
Well, you see, the history of this banditry started with farmers' Fulani clashes.
Okay.
And it was not properly controlled. And the Fulani started taking arms, fighting the farmers. In the end, you know, poverty can cause a lot of problems. When they started losing their cattle, they realized that stealing the cattle of other people is another way because they have guns. So they started by cattle rustling.
Okay.
And when the cattle are getting exhausted, they now started hijacking people, demanding for ransom. And that was how it started. But I still believe that the federal and state, both federal and state government would have stopped it, because there's no small community that is stronger than the state.
Yes.
The nation has capability, I'm still sure. You see, my own perception is that President Muhammadu Buhari did not want to use force because they are all Nigerians, mostly. There are some foreigners, they said, that infiltrated and started coming. I think he wanted to use some moderate approach so that he can save a lot of lives. Because these people, a lot of them are not educated. You know, Fulanis, they are cattle rearers, they move in the bush. I'll give you one example. When I was in Sokoto, I had about 10 herds of cattle, and I gave them to a Fulani man who has a group of people's animals with him. Okay. And in the night, I wanted to see him in the evening. And suddenly rainfall started coming. We went to the bush to meet him, okay, so that I want to see how he lives, where my cattle, animals are.
How they're faring.
And I met him with a small shed. His family are all in that small hut, a small hut. And he was outside with nylon bag on his head in the rain near the cattle, guarding the cattle. In rainfall.
Oh my.
I was surprised when the rain started reducing. It was still raining, but slowly. His child ran outside I thought he was going to the father. A cattle that had a new baby.
Okay.
A new baby was sucking one of the breasts.
Yeah.
And this boy ran to another breast.
The other one.
Was taking the other one together with the cattle. So you can see the kind of people you are talking about. So I think the president is sure, he knows he's a Fulani man. If you are not educated, the Fulanis that are not educated are just ignorant of even themselves. So I think he wanted to manage them, and that is the cause of the spread of what we are having today. But I'm still confident that the federal government have the capacity
that it can be controlled.
To stop it, yes. But it may have to maybe lead to a lot of loss of lives of those people.
Nigeria is a country where we take religion very seriously. And unfortunately, it looks like we have a lot of half-baked idea and education of our religion. How do we begin to ensure proper education so that we understand that it is the same God, one God that we all are worshiping? It's just the way we worship him that differs, and that we must have peaceful coexistence amongst all religious faiths. How do we begin to go about this?
By making sure that this Western education is properly given, provided for at all levels.
Western education.
Western education. You have to, you see, I am a graduate of Bayero University, Kano. I acquired master's degree. If not for my perception and my understanding of this world and my understanding of my faith, I would have been listening to these clerics that are business-oriented clerics. In both Islam and Christianity,
yes.
You find bishops and pastors and sheikhs who understand the religion upside down. They translate the verse of the Quran upside down. They don't appreciate the actual meaning of the Quran, neither the Bible. And they want to confuse those illiterates, followers, who follow them, to say that, for example, let me give you an example of jihad.
Okay.
This holy war.
Yes.
They always say the people will take arms and start killing innocent people.
Calling them infidels.
Jihad. No. You see, in Islam, there are 5 categories of jihad. That is not only a religious war. The actual meaning of jihad is struggle against evils. What kind of evil? The first jihad is called jihad al-nafs. That is jihad against yourself.
Okay.
That is struggle against your inner desire. How do you control your emotions? How do you control your feelings?
Your desires.
How do you control your desires? How do you control your anger? This is jihad. If you can control, you can achieve this, you have achieved a true jihad, and that's the first one that you should do to control yourself. Then there is jihad in ilm, that is education, knowledge. You acquire knowledge and impart this knowledge to other people. That is jihad. It's a form of struggle to make sure the society, your own contribution to the development of society. Jihad amwal, that means if you are rich, in Islam you have to pay what we call dues, zakat, you to other people, the poor people. How do you take care of them? Using your own money. It is very difficult for people to part away with money. It is only when you achieve this jihad in nafs, that is struggle against yourself, your inner desire, that you can take out the percentage that God has said, 1/40. I understand even in Christianity, they have these dues.
Yes.
That you are supposed to,
10%.
If they are all educated, if people are doing all this, I'm telling you, the poor will not be angry with the rich people because they will have something to feed themselves. if you are disputing the way God, the whole religions, the Jews, Hindus,
Yes.
they all have these kind of provisions.
Yes.
Then the jihad of people are talking about is only allowed in Quran to defend yourself, your community. If you are attacked, it is compulsory for every human being that is in that community to take arms and defend themselves. And even then, he said, do not transgress the limit. You should not go beyond what they have done to you. If you send them away, don't say you have to go and kill all of them. In the process, you can catch their slaves, you can get slaves, you can get... All these things, you have to understand the basic provisions in the Quran. But if you now read the last one and say take arms...
That is the one that people, keep promoting.
So this Western education is very, very vital in understanding yourself. Because...
But when you're talking of Western education,
yes,
there's also the group that says it's haram.
You see, this is not, like I told you, there is extremism in everything. What is haram? What do they don't even understand themselves. There are people who are, giving knowledge of things upside down. They don't understand their religion because they are not properly educated in both Western and Islamic sense.
Islamic faith.
Recently, somebody translated Quran in Igbo language. Without Western knowledge, will he do that?
He couldn't have done that.
He wouldn't have done that. So the importance of education cannot be overemphasized. We need to make sure that education is given to the Constitution guarantees free education at primary school level. But in my state, I said up to tertiary level.
Oh, great.
Because I have seen that with more education, there is more understanding of the faith itself.
As we begin to round off this conversation, Senator Ahmed Yarima.
I thought you were going to ask me about the marriage.
No, I mean, it's absolutely not necessary.
Yes.
It's unnecessary.
You see, because it was also a very typical issue. You see,
yes,
people didn't even know that.
But I purposely left that conversation.
When they went to eat, they invited me. Once they realized that it was very difficult for them to prosecute me.
Yes.
The pressure from what do you call it? A prosecutor from International Criminal Court of Justice arrived Lagos on his way to Abuja to investigate and find whether I can be prosecuted there. But the provision of the Constitution that I quoted for that stopped them because when I was going to do the marriage, I did it at the Central Mosque. And I invited Sharia Court of Appeal of Abuja, not only to witness, but to give me a certificate that the marriage was conducted under the Sharia law. And the Constitution of Nigeria has prohibited even the National Assembly from adjudicating anything that has to do with Sharia law. It's very clear. So this thing is just misunderstanding of...
Like I said... For me,
so I decided to bring it because so that we can cover everything. Yes.
But maybe what I would have asked you about is the $100,000 dowry.
Yeah, you see, under the Sharia law, a woman can be given what we call kintar. No limit of wealth. Because you cannot say you want a partner, a life partner, that is coming from a background that maybe they don't have. She was a foreigner, so in their own rules and regulations, in Islamic rules and regulations, if you have the ability to buy a house for her,
go ahead.
It's part of it. So it was the total cost of the house that I bought for them. I was going and the dowry and the gold and other thing that were put together to $80-something thousand, and I made it $100,000.
And you just rounded it off.
Yes.
Okay, Senator Ahmed Yarima, what next for you? Since you have decided to pave way for your younger brother, I want to call him, to go to the Senate. What next for you?
So now I contested, as you know, in 2004. I tried to aspire.
Yes.
And so long as I'm able to continue, I'm going to be in politics. One thing I promised myself is that I will never leave my party. I'm a very strong believer of God, and I believe that in whatever party I am, I never changed party since I started.
Yes,
and whatever I'm going to become, my party merged from APP to become ANPP. It merged with ACN and the CPC to become APC.
APC.
Now, if they want to merge again, I will be with them.
You'll still
but
remain.
I will never decamp to any party because of aspiration. I believe that only God determines who becomes what in life. And power belongs to him alone.
Thank you very much, Senator Ahmed
welcome.
Yarima, for
Thank
granting us this time with you. It's
Thank you
really been enlightening. Thank you very, very much.
You are most welcome.
Indeed, religion should be a binding factor. It should be our strength and not our weakness. It shouldn't divide us. And once we're able to adhere to the dictates of our different faiths, we can only live together as one indivisible entity in Nigeria. That's what I'm taking away from this conversation on Executive Discourse. Do join us again, same time next week on the network service of the NTA, because you never can tell, as I'll always say, who my trailblazer will be. My guest today has been somebody who really blazed the trail, even though innocently. But I mean, we're here celebrating him today. Join us again, same time next week. I am Ololade Adeniji Adele. Bye for now.